Hi Rosies, and welcome to another video. Today's video is going to be a bit different. I'm going to be doing a book review video. I'm personally not a fan of books. I don't really like to read for fun, but if it's something that I actually enjoy reading or have been interested in for a while, then I will read it. I'll tell you a little background about what I read first. So I've watched videos of this. In the past, I've watched documentaries, I've watched just little clips every now and then. I was fascinated by the story of Anne Frank. She was a Jewish girl who was a victim of the Holocaust during World War II. She went into hiding with her family and 4 other people to hide from the Nazis. I was really interested in one specific movie because they don't show concentration camps and it just shows where they were hiding. Anne called this place the Secret Annex. It was in the office building of where her dad worked. It was in the back building, so she was hidden from everyone else. She had to cover all the windows, make sure that no one heard them. They all had to be quiet during the day. During the hours where the workers were downstairs, they could only make noise during lunchtime or after the workers went home. They had very strict rules there. They were all confined in just 3 or 4 rooms. One room was the dining room for Mr. and Mrs. Van Pels and their son Peter. Peter was in one room, and then the dining room upstairs was for the parents, and just a dining room for everyone to eat, and then where they slept. Downstairs was Anne's dad Otto, Anne's mom Edith's room, and then in the other little room there was a room for Margot, who's her sister, and Anne. And then when one other person, Fritz Pfeffer, joined, he ended up sharing the room with Anne, and Margot had to move into her parents' room. There was also an attic right above Peter's room, so that's where Anne liked to go a lot and look at the chestnut tree. I found this really interesting, the whole story about Anne. I watched a couple documentaries, and some of them did show concentration camps, which I'm not a fan of. I don't really like to look at that stuff, so I tried to skip most of it, the parts that I don't want to see. So because of all that, I've been interested in it. I've been fascinated with her story for quite a while, but just recently I got her diary, which is Anne Frank, the Diary of a Young Girl. I just read it a few weeks ago. I read it twice. I read it on my own all the way through. And the second time I went on YouTube and there was an audiobook, so I just followed that. This is such an interesting story. I'm so fascinated about what happened in this because there are things that you never expected Anne to think about or write. She writes about a lot of issues going on in the annex, being in a confined space. And she's very close with her dad. She adores her dad. There were fights with her mom. She feels she doesn't understand her. She loves her sister Margot. She develops a relationship with Peter, who's the only guy who's around her age in the annex. Anne was 14, I think, 13 or 14, and Peter was 16, about 16. So they were kind of related in age around that, and they would talk to each other a lot about what was going on because they really had no one else to talk to. I found this diary very interesting. It's probably one of the only books I probably will read just because it's such an interesting story. It is really sad what happened to her in the end. In the end, they got discovered on August 4th, 1944. Yeah, 44. Her last entry was on August 1st, 1944, so it was 3 days before the whole annex was discovered. So they went to Auschwitz, and then they all got separated at some point. Edith stayed in Auschwitz, and she ended up dying there of starvation. Margot and Anne went to Bergen-Belsen, and they ended up dying of typhus. So it is the saddest outcome that they have. It's sad how they ended up transferred to different camps and they were all separated. And Otto, her dad, was the only one that lived out of the annex. So he survived the concentration camps. but everyone else in the annex died, sadly. So if Anne knew that her dad was alive, then she probably would have had more strength to live. But she didn't, because she thought everyone was dead that she knew of that was in the annex. She had no one left, so she didn't know. I found this very interesting. I'd probably read it again, but I would rather watch the movie. I would definitely recommend this book because it's just interesting knowing what went on in a 13 to 14-year-old girl. I just think it's really interesting, like, having someone's perspective of the Holocaust and concentration camps and being involved in World War II, just all that, and having Jews being discovered and transferred somewhere else. Like, they were segregated from everyone else. They couldn't do a lot of things. They were restricted. They had to wear a yellow star so people would know that they were Jewish. They had a curfew. They couldn't do a lot of things that at that point other people could do, like, I guess, the Germans. So it is a very interesting book. One quote that I like that Anne said herself was that she wants to go on living even after her death. She wanted to become a writer, and after she died, her dad got the diary from Meep, who was a helper when everyone was in the annex, and she discovered the diary just laying on the ground, all the papers spread around. She gave the diary to Otto, and he published it into a book, which is one of these, and it has been translated into many languages, and this is just one of them. I would definitely recommend this book. I think it's a really good book, and you get to see what it was like for someone who was involved in that time period, during war and suffering and all that stuff. I think it's a good thing that Anne didn't bring her diary to the camp, because she probably might have or would have, but it probably would have been confiscated and she wouldn't have had to write in it. But if she was able to write in it during concentration camps, it would be a little weird to know what was going on, but it'd be also interesting from her perspective. But I'm actually glad that she didn't, because they probably would have, like, thrown it away and we wouldn't have this diary. So I'm happy that she just, like, I mean, she couldn't take it with her anyway, because the Gestapo, like, spread it on the ground, so they just left it there. They just brought valuables with them. So yeah, I know this is kind of like a really short book review, but I just wanted to say what I think about it, because I found it to be a really interesting book. I'm not really a fan of books, so it's rare when I find a book that I actually like. I think it would be cool to actually meet Anne. Of course, no one can, but people who knew her, that's how we can know what she was like. Yeah. So, I'm sorry this was a little short or a little long, but I just wanted to share what I think about it. I would definitely recommend it if you're into this sort of thing. If you like reading about this whole thing, or fascinated about her whole story, or just anything else that she was involved with during that time, like World War II, if you're fascinated with that, or what happened during the Holocaust, or whatever, I would recommend this book. I think it's a really good book. She got this diary when she was 13 for her 13th birthday, so she wrote in it for about 2 years. Yeah, basically 2 years. When she got it in 1943, or 1942, yeah, 1942 to 1944, to when she was discovered. So about 2 years she wrote in this book. So I found it really fascinating. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it if you're into that sort of thing. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, Rosies!